The Marketing Legends video series is made possible through the generous support of the Chef Foundation. The Chef Foundation is a not-for-profit organization whose mission is to develop and recognize scholars and scholarship in marketing globally and further the development of marketing thought.
Welcome to the American Marketing Association's Marketing Legends interview series. I am Valerie Zeithamel, the David S. Van Pelt Family Distinguished Professor of Marketing at the University of North Carolina's Kenan-Flagler Business School. I will serve as today's host. Since 1937, the AMA has served as a global leader in marketing knowledge. Today, the AMA strives to be the most relevant force and voice influencing marketing around the world, to be an essential community for marketers. The Marketing Legends program is designed to honor exceptional marketing people within that community and create a repository of educational content to inspire students, scholars, and managers. Today, I am speaking with Leonard Berry. Thank you, Len, for joining us.
My pleasure, Val.
Len Berry is University Distinguished Professor of Marketing, Regents Professor, and the M.B. Zale Chair in Retailing and Marketing Leadership at the Mays Business School at Texas A&M University. He is also Presidential Professor for Teaching Excellence at Texas A&M. He's a leading scholar in services marketing and retailing studies, and more recently, a leader in the study of healthcare service. He has been published in leading journals and has written 10 books, including Management Lessons from Mayo Clinic, Discovering the Soul of Service, and On Great Service. He has received numerous honors, including the AMA Irwin McGraw-Hill Distinguished Marketing Educator Award, Paul D. Converse Award, and the Lifetime Achievement Award for Research and Scholarship from the Mays Business School. In 2015, he was named an AMA Fellow. Professor Berry received his PhD from Arizona State University, and in 2014 was inducted into ASU's Carey School of Business Hall of Fame. Len, I have just briefly summarized your background. Would you share with us a snapshot of your early life and tell us how you ended up studying marketing?
It was a happy accident, Val. I was at the University of Denver. I was an undergraduate. I was majoring in behavioral sciences, psychology, sociology, economics. There was this area major, and I really didn't have a life plan or a career plan. And in my junior year, I stayed in Denver every summer rather than go home to where I lived in California, because I was on the tennis team, and so I stayed in Denver each summer to teach tennis at the local tennis club. And between my junior and senior year in the summer, I roomed with an MBA student, someone I didn't know. I just put an ad in the newspaper to find a roommate, and this young man was an MBA student. I didn't know about MBAs, and he told me about the MBA, and I thought, you know, what else do I have to do? I'm going to go get an MBA. And so I did. I stayed at the University of Denver, got my MBA, and I took a marketing class, and I loved it. And that one professor showed me that I could use my psychology, I could use my economics, I could use my behavioral background and do something with it. And that's what led me into marketing.
In 1983, you presented a paper at an AMA conference entitled Relationship Marketing, which was subsequently published. Could you share some insights into the development of that paper and how the area in that topic has changed since that time?
You know, I had this opportunity to present a paper at an AMA conference in the early 80s. And I wanted to talk about my view of marketing that was different from the view that I had been learning in school. And that view was that marketing didn't stop when you attracted a new customer, that marketing was actually just beginning. We needed to do marketing once we attracted the customer, expand the relationship, solidify the relationship, make it stronger, keep the customer, not lose the customer. And marketing at that time, the field was all about attraction of new customers. So I decided to title my talk Relationship Marketing. It just seemed like a logical title. And it turns out that it was the first time that we had used that phrase in our literature. My paper was published. And but little did I know, it just seemed like common sense to me to call it relationship marketing. Little did I know what would happen with that subtopic in our field. It's just exploded with the application of technology and CRM and the broadening of relationship marketing, not just to customers, but to other stakeholders, to relationship building with employees, with communities, with suppliers. And I just, a happy accident, being in the right place at the right time and wanting to give a talk about what marketing I think should be more holistic in its approach. And it just seemed logical to call it relationship marketing. That was, building a bond with your customer. That was marketing. So that's what happened.
But it was really trailblazing. And many other things you have done have been trailblazing, starting from your own creativity. Now I'm going to turn to a question that involves me. Would you talk a little bit about the work that you and I have done with Parsu Parasuraman in the development of ideas in the area of services marketing?
Well, just one of the greatest gifts of my career was to come to Texas A&M and to find you and Parsu waiting for me. And we were soulmates from the beginning. And you and I were already into services marketing. Parsu was a little bit of a late bloomer. But we kind of, when I got there, we worked on him and got him into our team. And we started to work in a very early time in the development of the field of services marketing. There had just been a few papers written at that time. And we started to work on that as a team. And I think I think there are many lessons from our work together. And one of the lessons is to find the right people to work with. We truly were a team. We liked each other. We trusted each other. We brought complementary skills to our work. We had a passion for services, a true passion. We weren't just there to try to get published. We truly loved the field of services marketing. And we all shared in common the need to make our work relevant for managers and not just for our colleagues in academia. And it was magical because of that chemistry that we had. I can think of just a few stories. If we had more time, Val, you and I, we could tell stories for the next 2 hours. That's not the purpose of this interview.
Well, yes, it is. Tell a few stories.
But there's a couple I really want to tell. The one story is the origination of the GAPS model. At Texas A&M, in our marketing department conference room, the three of us, and Parsu brought in a scrap of paper with scribbling of what would become the GAPS model. You remember that?
Of course.
You know, that was before laptops and before iPads and before, you know, fancy equipment. And Parsu had, I think he might have even used a pencil, had a drawing, the first drawing of the GAPS model. And we sat around that table and we were so excited, you know, to see those boxes and arrows. And we started discussing it. And that picture on that one piece of paper proved to be the research plan for what turned out to be a 5-phase Marketing Science Institute study over 10 years. Or maybe even longer, I think 10 years at least. So that's one story I'll never forget. That day, the three of us were in that conference room with that scrap of paper. A second story was when Parsu and I were in Rochester, Rochester, New York. And we were, you know, when this was phase 3, I believe, of our 5-phase study. And the three of us alternated going out and doing focus groups because we were, in that phase, we were trying to find out more about expectations, where they came from, why customers expected what they expected. And we were alternating, and our policy was at least 2 of us would always go on the trips. So you and I travel together, Parsu and you travel together, Parsu and I travel together. In this particular case, Parsu and I had done 2 back-to-back focus groups with customers at Eastman Kodak in Rochester, New York. And it was a Friday evening. And we got back to the Holiday Inn. It was about 9 o'clock at night. We were hungry. The restaurant was about to close. There were no other customers in the restaurant. We just barely got into the restaurant. And I was feeling we were tired. I was feeling a little sorry for myself. It was Friday night. I think there was an A&M football game the next day that I was going to miss. And Parsu and I were having dinner. And I looked at him and I said, Parsu, why are we here? It's Friday night. None of our colleagues at Texas A&M are here. They're with their families or whatever at movies. And here we are. Why are we here? And he said, Len, we're here because the data are here. And I've never forgotten that. That was such an inspirational quote. And I nodded my head and I said, yes, that's why we're here. And one more story that involves the three of us. And that is, we're in your kitchen in North Carolina. You know the story I'm going to tell. We're in your kitchen, Valerie, and it's this Saturday. And we're analyzing our data and planning our next set of articles. And we drew on a piece of paper our first rendition of the zone of tolerance. And we knew it. Yes, that feeling that we get once in a while as an academic, that we had something there. Because we had learned in that phase that there were 2 different levels of service expectations. The level of expectation that we had posited from the beginning, desired service expectations. But in our 3rd phase, in our interviews, we had learned that there was another level, and that was what we wound up calling adequate service expectations, what consumers would accept. And in between was this zone of tolerance, like this sidewise accordion. And higher, if the perception was higher up in the zone, the better. Lower in the zone, the worse. Below the zone, bad. And we wrote some beautiful work from that. But we invented that in your kitchen.
In my kitchen.
Yeah, yeah.
I do remember that one. Of the three of us, Len, you are always the person that I feel communicated best with business people. You could motivate an audience of business people like no one I've known. And as someone in general who has consulted with many, many companies and served on various boards of directors, how do you make your ideas accessible, your scholarly ideas accessible to business people?
Val, for whatever reason, I've always been equally comfortable in the business world as I am in the academic world. And I've always felt that I had one foot in the business world and one foot in the academic world. Throughout my career, I've always spent time with business executives. I've learned so much from them. I've learned so much from my board service, sitting around the table at a board meeting with really smart people. And at board meetings, you're always discussing some really difficult issue for the company. And so I think my interest, indeed my passion, for trying to do what I could to make our work useful for managers, for leaders, has always been there. In terms of the methods that I've used to try to disseminate academic research, our books, of course, we did our first book, Delivering Quality Service, and boy, that book, we wrote it a long time ago. It's still selling.
I said in my interview that every once in a while I get $25 in royalties, and it's 25 years old?
Yes, it's amazing. I mean, 25-year-old books have been put out to pasture. The shelf life of that book has been amazing. So the books that we've done together, the books that I've done with other co-authors or alone, have been one way to communicate with managers. And I've really worked hard on my writing to become a better writer. I've always worked with a writing coach. Even to this day, I work with a writing coach who's helped me communicate in the most direct and compelling way. And I think it's one of the best career decisions I've made, is to invest in writing coaching. I've considered myself to be a good writer. You're a fabulous writer, Valerie, and Parsu is a very fine writer as well. That's another thing that we had in our team, is we could all write. And so, as opposed to some teams where sometimes there's only one person on the team that can write, and that poor person has to always write the articles, which isn't fair. But I just always felt I wanted to be better. And working with a writing coach has helped me, especially with my books. I would turn maybe the third or fourth draft of a book when I thought it was ready over to my writing coach, and then get back a lot of feedback as well as editing. And yeah, that sentence is too long. And yes, this word is going to be more meaningful than that word. And so that's helped me. And then just being willing to get in an airplane and present to an audience of 500 executives and translate our work into a meaningful manner for them is very rewarding for me, yeah.
Len, your wife has served as a mayor, your son as a television writer, and now fantasy sports analyst. Have their careers influenced any of your research?
Actually, it's the other way around in this case. My research has influenced my wife's work as mayor and my son's work as on television. He's ESPN, head of fantasy sports at ESPN now. He's got a big job. And I've learned a great deal from my wife and my sons. And I love them so much and so proud of all of them. And my other son, Jonathan, is a talent manager and television producer in Los Angeles. And he has a big job too. So I've learned a great deal from them. But in terms of your specific question, my son Matthew was a television writer, a comedy writer in Los Angeles, but on the side, he had this deep interest in sports. And so he moonlighted doing radio for ESPN in Los Angeles, where he lived at the time. And he also developed 2 fantasy sports websites. And at a time when it was really hard to make money online, both of his websites became profitable. And his number one operational principle in running his websites was customer service. Customer service. He would always come back when he'd visit with me and come back and say, Dad, when there's a service failure or service snafu with one of our members for our website, we respond immediately, we exceed their expectations. I mean, he had the lingo down. And my wife is mayor. I'm so proud of her, Val. She's just finishing her 2nd term. She's term limited. And so she served for 6 years as mayor of College Station, Texas. She's been fabulous. Of course, I'm biased, but a lot of other people think she's been a fabulous mayor. And service quality in city government has been her number 1 priority, which we really needed when she took office. And the culture in our city management today is much more service-oriented than it was before she took office. So your particular question, I think maybe some of Dad's philosophies rubbed off on the family.
I do remember, this is a little story that you might not know that I knew, but you used to be in very high demand for speeches. And I don't remember whether it was Matthew or Jonathan who was your coordinator. So when somebody wanted to hire Len Berry, they would call and he would take the call and work out the schedules. Do you remember that?
Yes, just one mistake in your story, although I like the story.
Well, you're a legend, so.
I like the story. It was Nancy, my wife, the mayor.
Who took the calls?
Who took the calls.
Okay.
She would say, I'm Nancy from Len Berry's office, and hope they didn't figure out she was Nancy Berry, Len Berry's wife. And the reason she did that is I hated the question when people would want to hire me to give a speech. How much do you charge? I was no good, you know, and if I felt sorry for them sometimes, I'd say, oh, just pay my airfare or something. And then Nancy would get mad at me, my wife. So she took over that job. The rule in the house was, if somebody calls you to make a paid speech, you have to refer them to me, your office. You can't negotiate because you're lousy at it. And so she did. And she's very good at that, just as she's very good at negotiating now as the mayor. And one time, she got me such a big fee that it freaked me out because I felt so much pressure, that I had to give this fabulous speech to be worth all this money that she negotiated for me. So I asked her, please don't do that again. So you had most of the story right, but yeah.
Maybe it was one of your sons who told me that they had.
That, yeah, I'm sure, because they knew about Nancy and Len Berry's office.
Okay, well, another interesting thing about you is you made so many contributions to the marketing discipline, but at a point in your career, you changed a little bit, and you made a lot of contributions in the healthcare area. So in recent years, you've served as a senior fellow at the Institute for Healthcare Improvement, and you teach in the medical school at Texas A&M. So describe how you became engaged with this work and what contributions you're trying to make.
In the academic year 2001-2002, I had a sabbatical coming up. Sabbaticals are such a wonderful opportunity that we have in academic life. And I've had two in my career. This was the second one. And actually this was, the one I'm going to tell you about was my second one. I've now had three. I just had one last year. And I thought long and hard about the purpose of a sabbatical. Recharge your batteries, find a new mountain to climb, learn something new, challenge yourself. And when I addressed those questions for me, I realized that I had devoted my entire career to services research, but knew very little about one of our most important services of them all, which is healthcare. So I decided I would do my sabbatical in healthcare. And I contacted the Mayo Clinic, because I knew of the Mayo Clinic. It's one of the most prestigious healthcare brands in the world, to see if I could study service improvement there. They're a very cautious institution. I had to actually visit Rochester, Minnesota, where they're headquartered 3 different times. I probably met 50 people who interviewed me before they said yes. I don't think they'd ever had anybody with the access they wound up giving me in my sabbatical. And they had needed to make sure that if they were going to let me peek under the covers, I was the right person to peek under the covers. And I also had to go to their Arizona campus for interviews. They did say yes, and I spent the 2001-2002 academic year on sabbatical at the Mayo Clinic, half of my time in Rochester, Minnesota, half of my time in Arizona, in their newer campus. I got hooked on healthcare. I mean, that's the only way to say it. I was fascinated. I could use all my background in services, and I knew that if I could just learn enough about healthcare, that I could make a contribution. Because even at the Mayo Clinic, such a exemplary, efficient, wonderful institution, I saw waste, I saw inefficiency, even there, although they're so much better than most health systems. And I decided sometime during that sabbatical that I was going to devote the rest of my career to working on service improvement in healthcare. That was 15 years ago, and I've been true to that promise. And it's been rejuvenating, it's been stimulating, it's been inspiring. And my senior fellowship at the Institute for Healthcare Improvement, I spent most of the academic year of 2014 in Cambridge, Massachusetts, where they're headquartered. My third sabbatical. And I started a project that I've now completed, and I'm in the process of writing up the research on improving the service experience of cancer patients and their families. it's just the most enthralling work I think I've done in my career. Our work together was enthralling. I've always tried to work on important problems, big problems. You and I and Parsu share in common our commitment to making our work truly help people. We've always had that in common, which helped, I think, make us such a good team. And when I started working with cancer patients and their families, and the brave oncologists and surgeons that treat these very sick patients, I just knew that I could use my service background and make a difference. We've made so much more progress clinically in cancer care than we have in terms of service quality. There's so many issues. And I've been fortunate in the last several years during this journey I'm on to have found a handful of doctors in the cancer community to work with me as collaborators, to write with me in the medical journals, the oncology journals. And I'm well underway in writing up the research now and getting it published. And I just feel very grateful that I have the opportunity to do this kind of work at this stage of my career. I feel blessed to have met so many brave people who have been touched by cancer. You know, cancer isn't one disease, it's more than 100 different diseases, and even one kind of cancer is very different from one patient to another. It's extremely complex. And when someone gets a cancer diagnosis, it's a fireball that hits their life. Cancer may not be life-ending, but it's always life-changing. And there's so much more we can do to support the families and the patients. And so that's what I'm doing now. I expect that this work in the cancer field will be for the remainder of my career. I'm really into it, and I'm inspired by the work.
Well, good. It's very worthwhile. All right, now that we've discussed a lot of serious things and your career path, we're going to move into something a tad bit unconventional. We're going to ask you 5 fast questions so that we can find out more about you. Are you up for it?
Yes.
Okay. First one. What superpower would you most like to have?
What superpower would I most like to have? I'd like to, I'm supposed to answer this quickly.
Yeah, the question, I said the question fast. You can think a bit.
I'd like to be able to cure people with serious disease. We all, and you're not asking for long answers, so I'll mind my manners. But just this footnote, you know, there's life and there's death, but too many people die too soon, and sometimes they die too soon because we do the wrong things when they ask for health care. And I'd like to be able to help those people.
Okay. All right, now you can't make the next one serious because it's not a serious question.
Oh, gosh, I messed up.
No, you didn't. That's fine. That is definitely a superpower.
But you know me.
I know.
And I've always been serious.
I know, and I told you coming in here that you had to let your humor show.
Yes.
Because you do have humor.
I'm going to be good from now on.
Okay, you got a couple more chances.
Okay.
All right. Have you ever fantasized about going to the Olympics? And if so, what would you compete in?
The pole vault.
The pole vault?
Yes.
Now tell me why.
Because I can't believe those people run that far and that fast with that heavy pole and then jump 15 feet in the air. It just seems incredible to me. And if I could do that, I would just think that was cool. That was really cool. Flying in the air, yes, I would be a pole vaulter.
Okay, good one. Where is your favorite place to travel?
My favorite place to travel is Santa Barbara. Santa Barbara, California. My wife and I go there typically twice a year for a week at a time. We rent a home. We have a favorite beach, and we just de-stress. We have some favorite restaurants, and we read good books, and we enjoy our company, and we don't work. I love Santa Barbara, California.
It sounds like a wonderful place. Do you have a morning ritual?
Yes, I do. I have invested in a treadmill desk that I have in my home office. And it's one of the best investments that I've made because I sit less and I stand up more, and I can do some of my work that I normally would or traditionally would have done sitting. I can now do standing and even moving slowly on my treadmill desk. And my morning ritual starts with reading the morning newspapers on my treadmill desk.
Okay, sounds both informative and healthy.
Yes.
All right, and the last question, what is the last movie that you saw, and was it good or bad?
Oh, the last movie that I saw was Concussion, which is the movie about the concussion issues in the National Football League and in football in general, and this very courageous doctor who went against the NFL that didn't want to deal with the concussion issues and persevered and turned out to be right, and it's changed the course of history in terms of the efforts we're going to now to protect football players from head injuries, traumatic head injuries. And I love that movie because of the story of the doctor. I was inspired by that movie, and I thought the acting was terrific. And I'm really sorry that it didn't win an Academy Award.
Len, we appreciate your time and your insights. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Val, and thank you. To be interviewed by such a precious friend is it's just deeply moving to me, and thank you so much. This was great.
It was. So on behalf of the American Marketing Association and the Marketing Legends interview series, I am Valerie Zeithamel. Thank you all for joining us.